Time now for Lions Central. Here's Brandon Alisaglu and Nick Kostora.
Welcome into Lions Central Radio. I am Nick Kostora alongside Brandon Alisaglu. And Brandon, it seems that our Motor City Kitties finally found a little bit of their roar last week, beating up on the Patriots 40-9 in the preseason.
Oh, if this is the regular season, I'd be going absolutely insane. But I'll take a preseason game where they look that good. It's hard to argue with that result.
Wow. It is the preseason. We tend to get excited, but hey, it's week 3 of the preseason, which means this is like the showcase game, and our Lions look pretty darn good. Our first team offense finally showed up. Buddy. Hey, I got a lot of positive momentum riding into this show. Just let me run with it for a minute here. The first team offense looked good. Defense looked good. Special teams looked good. Brandon, where do we start here?
There are definitely plenty of places we can look to, but one thing that stood out to me specifically was the running defense. I don't know if you heard the announcers during the game or even if we had the same feed because I have to watch it through NFL.com, but they actually had the best numbers of the entire preseason. And this isn't just a preseason designation anymore because this team just take the ball and stuff it down opponents' throats. There were plenty of plays that went for 1-2 yards or even behind the line of scrimmage. I thought their run defense was probably – that's what set up everything else as far as turnovers and everything else to me.
So in a week when we saw Reggie Bush look like a complete superstar, you want to lead off with the defensive line and Ezekiel Ansah.
I didn't even bring up Ezekiel Ansah. This is all about the entire defense. It's a group effort here. You know, I'm not trying to single out one guy.
There's some subliminal messaging to it, I believe.
Oh, we might find some time to talk about Ansah later on. I think I have a random note or two in here in all my notes. But, no, honestly, that defense, though, as a whole, I'm loving the way they're stuffing the run because this has been a big problem over the past few years.
Yeah, it has. We've talked at length on this show about the front four and how good they've looked and just the rotation that we're going to have on that defensive line. Running against the Detroit Lions is going to be a problem. The bigger question is running for the Detroit Lions. The running backs were an interesting note in week 3. The whole first team offense was, but Reggie Bush looked really good, and so did Joique Bell. Do we have our 1-2 punch here? Is it set in stone, Bush and Bell?
I think it has to be. I don't see – well, considering Montel Owens is getting carries before Mikel LaShore, and I don't think either – obviously we loved having Owens on the show, but he's a special team guy. He's not exactly a offensive dynamo. I'm pretty sure that sent the message where LaShore is on the depth chart.
Yeah, and so did watching Joique Bell run the ball. He had 5 carries for 52 yards. His longest run was 21, and he just looked good. He looked confident between the tackles. He knew how to break it to the outside. I'm in love with Joique Bell, and there aren't enough good things we can say about Reggie Bush. He had that one really great breakaway run where he kind of got caught from behind, but he was slowing down to work around defenders. Either way, all positive on that front with those two. And last week we had talked about wanting to see something out of Matthew Stafford in the passing game, again without Calvin. Did you see more out of him this week?
It was better. I'm still not sold. I'm not feeling that great about everything. It's obviously that our red zone offense especially is very Calvin Johnson dependent. I mean, there were a lot of field goals kicked in this game. When that field gets shorter, then that's when you need players that can make separation or sky over other players to, as we've seen Calvin Johnson do a la the 3 Dallas Cowboys. But it became real apparent that the Lions are lacking that guy, that second guy, who can find some separation. I mean, what did you think?
I feel like I'm trying to convince myself that I'm comfortable with Matthew Stafford right now, and we know his skill set and we know how good he can be. But I can't help but feel like he's being almost carried by the guys around him. I don't see Matthew Stafford as the one driving the offense, if that makes sense. I see the guys around him dictating what this offense is doing. He went, 12 of 25. Okay, he didn't look bad, but I don't think Matthew Stafford is really doing great things that we're excited about at this point. I need to see more from him. Maybe not necessarily in week 4 of the preseason, but I'm not my confidence meter with Matthew Stafford isn't very high right now.
And no, I agree with that too. He sailed too many of his passes. It looked like he was trying to throw to Calvin Johnson. There's a difference between quarterbacks like Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers and these middle of the pack guys like Stafford is they throw guys open. And that's another thing that kind of goes hand in hand with the separation. If you don't have the guys that can get separation, you better have Tom Brady.
Yeah, well, so that with our receivers though, the guys that can get separation, again, we didn't have Calvin on the field this week. Did any of them stand out or make a case like I can be that guy when Calvin is triple, double, quadruple covered? I didn't see it out of really anybody. We finally saw Broyles he had 2 catches. Nate Burleson finally had a preseason catch, but nobody stood out in this receiving corps for me, and that is still a serious issue that needs to be addressed.
Well, to me, Reggie Bush is a wide receiver, as we've kind of discussed before, and he did pretty well with that.
Yeah, that's a good PR positive way to spin it. Reggie Bush, I guess, is our number 2 receiver and our number 1 running back at this point. Yeah, I can go on and on about Reggie Bush, but everyone else is question mark.
Well, somebody who isn't a question mark and who looked absolutely stunning was Ndamukong Suh. He was dominant. I mean, and it wasn't just where he's fighting off the guard and the tackle and dragging the quarterback down with one arm. It was the types of plays where he's setting up Jones' sacks out there, or Jason Jones' sack by pushing in the middle of the pocket. He's stuffing running plays by penetrating into the backfield. He was everywhere. I thought he was excellent.
Yeah, it's a pick your poison between him and Fairley. Last week we talked at length about how well Fairley did, and this is a anything you can do, I can do better situation because Suh was dominant. Both of them are going to be dominant. Which one do you double team? You can't double either of them. It's hard not to be overly excited with both of their performances. Suh, again, though, he didn't he get another penalty hitting the quarterback late? So did Willie Young. So I don't know. That's another issue that they really need to refrain from those kind of stupid penalties.
Oh, in my section of notes here, the discipline section of all my reaction notes takes up at least 25% of it. I mean, there was Nick Fairley with the late hit after a fumble. C.J. Mosley with the same thing. I mean, the Lions could have had the ball first and goal at the 5. Instead, they're on the 20. Those things are terrible. But the Willie Young.
Pointing the finger.
What? I wasn't even
he wanted to intimidate Tom Brady or something.
In a preseason game.
Yeah.
But he's been like that all preseason. He's been barking a lot. And even your boy Reggie Bush there was shoving after a play. I'm just like, what is going on? And of course, Schwartz has got nothing to say.
I don't know what kind of attitude they're trying to set here. It's preseason against Tom Brady. I don't think you're going to rattle the guy too much.
Exactly. I don't understand why they were trying to do that. I'm okay with aggression, and one thing our high school coaches used to tell us was play with controlled rage.
Right.
So if you want to, have a little gamemanship, that's fine. But the penalties, those are going to cost you games. There's no way around that.
No, there's a difference between aggression and just being stupid and pointing a finger in the end zone at Tom Brady and getting I think it was a taunting penalty. There's just no reason for it. So, yeah, controlled rage. I really like how you put that. So that's where we're at with the discipline. I don't see this being a problem that's going to go away soon because that's just who the Lions are. That's kind of their identity at this point is we don't really answer to anyone. And, well, not even to Jim Schwartz, but that's an issue for another time. Position battles, Brandon. Did any of them get settled here in week 3? There's quite a few that we can get into. The one we know got settled, obviously, is the kicker battle. David Akers wins because today the Lions cut ties with Havard, Ruggles, and Kickalicious. So we know that Akers won. But if you want to get into it and lament that fact, go for it. But first, I'll set you up with the other ones. Did any other position battles get settled, or are there just more questions for you?
As far as the position battles, I think like we were touching on before, it's quite obvious that Joyke Bell has beat out LaShore. Uh, like you brought up earlier, he looked great running the ball. He would keep those legs moving constantly. He was throwing out stiff arms. He was elusive. There were drives where the team rode him and he responded. And it kind of goes back into what we were talking about with Reggie Bush earlier, and maybe even Matthew Stafford to a degree, is that the running game is actually going to set up this offense. If you go back and look touchdown throws, the one to who was it, Scheffler?
Yeah, he had the
Scheffler,
first
right?
one from Stafford.
Yeah, Scheffler and Foria, they were both pretty much the same play actions where the linebacker bit, the tight end was able to slip behind him, and the quarterback just dumped it right over the linebacker. Those are going to be the key. I mean, it's those small plays that set up the bigger plays. Those are going to be what makes this offense go, and especially if Matthew Stafford doesn't become that guy, that's well, that was a long way away from the position battle, but I couldn't help it. I got that point, and I had to go with it.
Hey, why not? But for Lions fans that don't know, some teams are actually able to utilize play action because they have a decent running game and teams will bite on it. I don't think we've seen that before. We're so used to these 5-wide sets and just airing it out. But yeah, when you have a decent running back, you can do play action and then people bite. So let me give you this, though, this quote from Mikel LaShore that kind of sums up where he's at. This was via Chris McCoskey of the Detroit News. LaShore said, "My role is whatever they say it is. I don't have any suggestions. Whatever it is, I will roll with it." End quote. So I don't even get the mentality of someone that's trying to earn this job. Mikel LaShore, is he just dead in the water at this point?
It sure seems like it. You hate to go back to his arrest for pot, but you know, he kind of has that "c'est la vie, I'm going to go home and hang out" kind of attitude. It's that's just not what you want to hear from a competitor, from your former second-round pick. It's shocking. I don't know how he got this far, and honestly, I don't know if he goes any further.
No, I've made my feelings known on this. There's talent galore with Mikel LaShore, and he just refuses to utilize it or showcase it. A week 4 against Buffalo, I don't even know how much playing time or what he's going to do there. At this point, I'd be shocked if he did show up. So, yeah, Mikel LaShore for me is dead in the water. Anything that he does at this point is just gravy because I'm not expecting anything. Another battle was we're looking at it as the outside linebacker, and Jim Schwartz has said that Ashley Palmer is the leader. I guess the de facto leader. Someone has to technically be the leader in this left outside linebacker battle. Is Ashley Palmer, let's say, is he the leader that we want in this battle?
Well, I think I've kind of touched on this before. All we're really looking for from that position is not to be absolutely atrocious. We almost want them to be an official at this point. We don't want to notice you. We're not going to get big plays out of him. And if you look at his Pro Football Focus grade, cumulatively throughout the preseason, over 75 snaps, he's at a -0.2, which is basically means he's being average. I can live with average from him because who are our other options?
Tahir Whitehead? I don't know. Average is almost good at this point for Palmer because you don't expect him to be good, great, amazing, any of that. You expect maybe average at best. So, yeah, he is the leader because that is one of the weakest positions on this depth chart. There isn't much there, and that's part of the reason we're so loaded up on the front four is because we have to be with what's behind him. I'm not excited about Ashley Palmer. I'm not excited about Tahir Whitehead or Rocky McIntosh or DeAndre Levy. Any outside linebackers, I'm not excited about the position.
I've got to go ahead and disagree with you there. I can't believe I'm going to say this because this is the guy who wrote the article that Levy needs to stand up. He looked good. He really looked good last game.
All right. Yeah, okay. Yeah, we did actually. We mentioned a couple shows ago. Do you ever notice DeAndre Levy? Yes, we did notice him against the Patriots. He did show up a little bit. I don't want to get into him too much and be too excited about one game out of DeAndre Levy, but hey, we give him his due. He played well. So if he can continue it, more power to him.
Well, yeah, and there was specifically that forced fumble that I didn't really find any of the forced fumbles to be that Charles Tillman-esque, I'm punching the ball out, this is all, my doing type of thing. They were more good form tackles. The helmet was on the ball. And that's what happens when you make good contact and you try to actually put somebody on the ground as opposed to whatever the Matador impression that the Lions have been performing for the last, 20-odd years. But
I will take a form tackle.
Exactly. But that forced fumble, it was a screen pass, which I think we touched on last week. They've been excellent at diagnosing and stopping the screen. But he read the play, he shook off a block, and then he had that textbook tackle, and the ball's on the ground. And like we said, these aren't scrubs that were turning the ball over as far as those running backs. That's Stephen Ridley and Shea Vereen. I mean, those are two guys that were probably too much money was spent on in my auction drafts, but people are expecting them to come up with some big numbers this year.
Yeah, that's a strong running game. That's a strong offense, and to be able to sniff out, I don't know if it was if they read it pre-play against Tom Brady, but to figure out what that quarterback is going to be doing with the ball, he doesn't give anything away. So there is something there. DeAndre Levy is reading screen passes out, sniffing them out against a quarterback like Tom Brady. He can do it against anyone in the league. So, yeah, that was a great play. Again, I'm tempered with Levy. I have to be because we've seen so much mediocrity out of him. But any step in the right direction we have to comment on and give the man his due. I'm happy about it. Another thing I'm happy about, Jason Fox is supposedly the likely starter, according to Kevin Seifert. We've talked about Jason Fox, not for a little bit, or not for a couple episodes, but we really went into him earlier in the preseason and how we wanted to see him beat out Hilliard for the right tackle spot. We think Hilliard's more of a jack of all trades, master of none, where he can just move around the offensive line. But Fox is someone that was a draft pick a couple years ago, and we wanted him to get this right tackle job. And now it looks like that's the case. So all smiles here, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty thrilled with that. He didn't do anything noticeably great in the last game, but he also didn't do anything for, just like Ashley Palmer, he didn't do anything for me to yell at the TV about. And along next to him, it looks like Warford's locked down that spot now. I mean, if you look at the drive chart, he was getting 3 series to every Gandy's 2 or something like that. And he played pretty well. There were at least once or twice I saw 75 down the field making a play. He's got to watch those penalties, though. Those could be drive killers.
Yeah, there's going to be growing pains. He's a rookie just like the others are. I can live with those out of him, though. He's kind of being thrown into the fire at right guard. I can live with him making mistakes because I've seen so many positive things out of him. I've seen the road grader that he can become. He's so strong. He's physical. And to be honest, he's in a competition with Dylan Gandy, who I don't ever want to see starting for the Lions. So I can live with multiple mistakes out of Warford, and hopefully they can tame him down. But his production so far has been what I would hope out of a rookie who's only played 3 preseason games and then some.
True, and kind of to harp on the whole O-line as a whole, I did like the way that they played. They held their own against a tough New England front seven, although granted Vince Wilfork wasn't playing, who's pretty good.
Yeah.
But like I said, I noticed a lot of good things coming from Warford. But how it seems like we come back to his strength a lot. I saw him and Riley Reef getting bull rushed a little too much for my taste, but I suppose those things are going to happen. It's there's other guys that are just as talented as Ndamukong Suh out there who is throwing guys around like rag dolls. I guess I can't expect him to constantly be great.
And for what it's worth, the Lions only gave up 1 sack against New England. Stafford was sacked once. Kellen Moore and Thaddeus Lewis, neither of those two was sacked at all. Sean Hill didn't play. So yeah, I did see what you saw as well, some bull rushes, but for most part, the Lions' protection held. Stafford, he can get rid of the ball quickly, and that there wasn't too many issues there, I didn't think. I think at the beginning of the preseason we said that the offensive line was one of our biggest concern areas, and I like where this offensive line is actually at right now. Is comfortable too strong a word for this offensive line?
I guess I'd go guardedly comfortable. Not guardedly optimistic, guardedly comfortable.
Yeah, I like where it's at. I don't know if you can single out one just glaring weakness along the offensive line, which is, that's a good thing. There isn't one spot for the other team to just blatantly attack. I guess if there had to be, it'd just be go at the right tackle and right guard because they're new. But I like the offensive line. I'm not sure I'm as excited about our battle between. Where should the Lions go here? Do we carry a fifth wide receiver or a fourth tight end? They have that option. That we have a Matt Willis at maybe as the fifth receiver, or maybe a Joseph Foria as the fourth tight end. There's only so many roster spots to go around here, Brandon. Where do you want that spot? If there is only one, where does it go?
At this point, I think you have to give it to Foria. That's my idea. That's the way I've seen it going so far. Willis has been good in spots, but he hasn't seemed to be consistent enough, or he doesn't play that position well enough, I guess, to stand out constantly. I guess I'm really at a loss for this one. It's a really tough call. Where are you falling in on this?
For me, it's not really tough at all. We've kind of just talked at length about how bad this group of receivers has been, so I don't see any reason to try and latch on to Matt Willis or any of them. Chris Durham, Spurlock, Patrick Edwards has, I guess, shown a couple of things, but we've seen Foria do well. We saw him do great this past week with Kellen Moore throwing him the ball, of all people. If you're scoring touchdowns with Kellen Moore throwing you the ball, you can succeed in this league. I'm all in for keeping Foria over whatever scrap heap fifth receiver the Lions have on the depth chart. This isn't a tough call for me at all.
Yeah, I guess you're right. There's way too much potential with Foria to where there's definitely a lot higher ceiling than there is than Matt Willis. And obviously, as the Lions have done, they can take Scheffler and put him outside, or hopefully they can do that with Foria as well. Although I noticed there was another Scheffler drop this game, and you know that his drop numbers they're just as bad as Pettigrew's. Maybe it's just because he's not a first-round pick that we don't harp on it as much, and I feel like we might have discussed this, but I'm not feeling that good about it. I'm just not.
Well, the reason we probably don't talk about it as much is because he just doesn't get as many targets as Pettigrew. His percentage is probably just as bad. Yeah, he drops passes way too frequently for anyone's taste. I mean, I think fans picture him swashbuckling in the end zone at Tampa Bay, and they forget the fact that his hands are suspect at times. So that kind of goes back to way back. I think it was our first or second show where we discussed Foria or Scheffler, and now we're saying they might not have to make that decision, but Foria's hands have looked really good. And I was an advocate of Scheffler. I still like Scheffler, but this Foria kid and what he's done in the preseason should at least put him on notice and say, hey, get it together, because there is someone behind you that will push you, that has the same size, the same strength, and is still young enough that he's developing. Scheffler, he's not going to add facets to his game at this point. What you get or what you see is what you get. So the only thing he can do is improve his hands and become more of a possession receiver or possession tight end receiver, whatever. He needs to get his hands in check, because this Foria kid's coming, and I don't see the Lions cutting him.
No, I guess you're right. You've totally convinced me. I'm on your side now. I don't see him cutting Foria. Unfortunately, he's also even more of a necessity now that Michael Williams looks to be out for, they say it's not a long-term injury, but a broken hand still is a broken hand. And for a guy who's supposed to catch the ball for a living besides blocking, doesn't seem like a very advantageous injury.
Well, yeah, you're right. That does make Foria more valuable. But with Michael Williams, we've gotten into how he was going to make this depth chart because he's such an adept blocker. That would be his role. He could be the blocking tight end. And maybe that kind of forces Foria to learn that role, at least not learn that role. He's learned to block in his career, but to take it more aggressively. A broken hand, who knows how? It says a few weeks. We don't know how long a broken hand is going to keep a tight end out. That's a serious injury, especially at that position. You can't go out there with a club on your hand and be a tight end. No one's ever buying you trying to catch passes with a club on your hand or anything. So, yeah, Foria might have to become more of a blocking tight end and really accept that role. This is a serious injury. It's one people might not really notice at first because Michael Williams isn't a name, but he was someone that he will have a niche role on this team. And Foria or Scheffler, not Pettigrew, because he's for better or worse, he is our receiving tight end. But yeah, someone's going to have to take over those blocking duties, at least in the short term.
Maybe Pettigrew should try playing with a couple clubs on his hands. We'll see how that goes.
Or some stickum or something. I don't know.
Is that legal? I'm not sure about
for
this.
For Brandon Pettigrew, it should be. It wouldn't be an advantage. It would just make it a level playing field.
For every rule, there is an exception. I did learn that one in school.
Another injury we had was Montel Owens, again, friend of the show. We talked to him a couple weeks ago. A great guy, and unfortunately, we don't have any real info on this injury. All the Lions are telling us is that it's not a long-term injury, which is, code for nothing. We don't know how long it is. It could end up being long-term. They're not giving us any details whatsoever. In the short term, is this going to hamper the Lions' offense, or I guess more importantly, is it going to really hinder the special teams where he is an ace and a star?
I'm definitely getting more and more concerned with the special teams because they brought in this coach from Jacksonville and they brought in Montel Owens, who was going to kind of be an extension of the coach. That's definitely a significant loss there. It kind of makes it even more a shot in the dark as to how good the special teams is going to be, and we've seen how atrocious this unit can be. The Lions can't afford, especially if they're going to give up 15 yards every time they force a turnover due to some stupid penalty, to be giving up field position in the punting game.
Yeah, every injury is significant, whether you realize it or not. And Montel Owens is one of those guys that just flies under the radar and makes plays. Let's hope that it's not long-term answer really is the right answer and that we're going to see him back quickly, because I think even if you didn't notice him, you notice his impact without seeing his name. He's someone that's going to make plays on special teams especially. So with how bad the Lions special teams have been, we really need someone like Montel Owens on the field.
The
ahead.
Special teams, though, I hate to do this 2 weeks in
Don't
a row,
do it.
but Sam Martin?
Oh, don't do it.
Fifth-round pick, Sam Martin?
Yes, he's a competent punter. What if you're going to draft him in the 5th round? He better be a competent punter. I'm not going to go too far with it. You know what? I'll let you go ahead and rant and rave about Sam Martin as a punter until he's doing like 3 coffin corners a game. I'm just not getting excited.
All right, well, he gave you one. And actually, what was more exciting, because if they're not going to be able to cover, punts and kickoffs and whatnot, at least he's taking kickoffs and putting them 5 yards or deep into the end zone or 3 yards outside of the end zone and not giving the special teams a chance to screw it up.
Yeah. Gosh, way to find a positive spin on this. You consistently, it seems like week in, week out, you're finding ways to bring Sam Martin to the table. Good for you.
I've been drinking this Honolulu blue Kool-Aid for a long time, my man. Oh, hey, guess what? It's finally time to talk about Ezekiel Ansah.
Oh, I was going to do
waited
the segue.
long enough.
I wanted to set it up for you.
I'm sorry. I got so excited.
No, please. This is your turn. Enjoy.
All right, first I want to break in by talking about I've got a little synergy here for us. We were talking about one of our newest sponsors, Bonita Tequila. It's a premium tequila that's being introduced by Exhibit. And so we're going to set up a Rod Allen-esque drinking game to where anytime I mention Ziggy or Gus for a while, maybe you take a shot of Bonita Tequila. Seems like it would go down well with it. But, oh my, did I fall in love all over again. He had that knee tweak, and the funny thing is I was about 10 minutes behind in game time because I was constantly reviewing plays over and over again to kind of look at things. And my phone just started blowing up. Hang in there, buddy. It's not as bad as it looks, buddy. It's like, what is going on? And I see him kind of limp off the field, and I got a little nervous. Okay, that's definitely understating it. I might have almost started crying. I'm not going to comment any further. But he came back out on that 4th and 1 and helped stuff it. Oh, I got a little dusty in the man cave. I'm just going to say it. It was beautiful.
By the rules of this game, you should already be drunk. Okay. I don't want to say his name too much. I'll just use once. Ezekiel Ansah. Yeah, he played great. Whatever. Ooh la la. But the knee tweak and the concussion. This is serious, or is it? I know you're going to find the bright spot here and tell me why Ezekiel Ansah is fine. But in today's NFL and a possible concussion, I don't think we're going to see him in preseason week 4. He sat out practice today. This is serious, Brandon. I know we're all rose petals with Ezekiel Ansah, but teams are going to have to take this slow with guys that have possible concussions. I don't know. Is Ezekiel Ansah guaranteed for week 1, or is this something that they might have to just kind of go slow with?
I don't know, and it just dawned on me to to look into the NFL concussion reporting guidelines a little more thoroughly, because I feel like if it's actually a concussion, that's something that's got to be documented and made known because of the way everything is today. And the knee tweak, if there was any possible damage from that, there's no way he's getting put out there in a preseason game, regardless of the situation and regardless of how great it made me feel.
Unless Rex Ryan were the head coach, then he might go in the fourth quarter.
That's just not fair.
I know. I don't know. It felt like it could get worked in there.
No, I agree. Man, at least we're not Jets fans. We always will have that. But
we can always find the bright side, can't we? Yeah. As a Lions fan, at least, I guess for right now, at least we're not Jets fans.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I am concerned about the concussion. Until I hear more about it, I'm not going to get too freaked out. But one defensive end who might want to start getting freaked out is Ronald Lewis. Well, he gone. That's it.
I don't even know if he was a defensive end. Did he even ever have a labeled position? I mean, we drafted him as an outside backer in the fourth round. I guess he was a hybrid that really couldn't do anything. The fourth round, it's a valuable round. I mean, obviously we've talked about how taking Sam Martin in the fifth round, that's a fifth-round pick. So a fourth-round pick is a fourth-round pick, and it's wasted. I mean, we got nothing out of this guy. I never even saw any promise or potential in a Lions uniform. So I guess I'm upset that we wasted a fourth-round pick, but I'm not upset to see Ronald Lewis go in the least bit.
No, and I agree with you there. It's not a good thing, but I'm also not going to start saying Martin Mayhew is a bum because – one fourth-round pick didn't work out. At least he had the testicular fortitude to cut bait and say, nope, this one didn't work. What actually did surprise me was cutting Chris Hope. I didn't see that one coming.
I mean, we just brought him in. We just brought him in. What did we get? 2 preseason? Was it 2 or was it just 1? I don't even know how many preseason games we got out of him. We didn't even see him. Why bring in a veteran at this point if you're not even going to carry him on the roster? There must be. Is there just something seriously wrong with him that we would know?
Well, the key word you said in that sentence was carry. Why is Chris Hope not on the team and Don Carey is? But whatever.
Oh.
Yeah, I went there.
All right. Well, Chris Hope and Ronald Lewis weren't the only cuts. We also parted ways with Chaz Schillens. We also, I don't know if anyone even knew his name, but Cody Wilson, a fellow Central Michigan Chippewa. We parted ties with him. I'm really hoping Cody catches on somewhere else or maybe in the CFL or something. So, yeah, Hope, Schillens, Wilson, and then Havard, Rugland. So, yeah, a lot of these cuts have been made. There's still more to come, but and none of these. Rugland stands out, but realistically, he was never going to be the guy. Akers is the guy. You don't bring in David Akers and then not keep him on the roster. So as much as I love Havard, Rugland, it wasn't meant to be. Doesn't look like they're going to carry him on the practice squad. He looked really good in the preseason. Maybe he'll catch on somewhere at some point. He's already 28 years old. I don't know. But for the most part with these cuts, it's just business. There's nothing here where you're like, that's going to severely hurt this team.
No, and usually the cuts from 90 to 75 is more of the actual dream-crushing cuts to where, sorry, kid, you're not going to make it probably anywhere at this point.
Yeah, I mean, that says it all. Yeah, it's the next round of cuts that are really where you're gonna see names that they were at least battling for spots on the roster, really battling. I mean, Chaz Schillens was never in a competition for a receiver spot. Neither was Cody Wilson, not realistically. As far as that quarterback thing goes, we have Sean Hill obviously as the backup set in stone. Stafford's a starter. There was talk, was Kellen Moore or Thaddeus Lewis going to lock down a third spot where the Lions only going to carry 2 quarterbacks? It seems based on Kellen Moore's performance, I'm not as big on it as others are, but he did have a good statistical performance against the Patriots, and it looks like the Lions are going to carry him, and they traded away Thaddeus Lewis to Buffalo for linebacker Chris White, so those two flop now. I guess Lewis and Moore are actually going to play each other this week, and White gets to play Buffalo. Who knows? I guess that's just a nice coincidence. But does this trade, does bringing Chris White do anything at linebacker, or is this just special teams depth, which we do really need. I mean, special teams depth shouldn't just be written off. We do need it. But is there anything to this trade?
I don't particularly think so. He's not going to challenge Ashley Palmer or anything. I wonder if it was a bit of a reaction to Montel Owens' injury, or maybe if it was, like you just said, solidifying some special teams depth. I wonder if this puts Tahir Whitehead on notice, or maybe Tracy Lewis. Chris White's probably got a bigger inroad to making the team than they do, but we are talking about the bottom of the roster and churning it, which is sad when you're talking about your second-string linebackers, but that should at least set off some warning bells, I think, for Whitehead and Lewis.
Well, I mean, the Lions were never going to carry 4 quarterbacks. We were questioning if they were even going to carry 3. So Lewis or Moore, one of the two was dead in the water for sure. And after Moore's, what were his stats in this game? He went 9 of 12 for 150 yards and 2 touchdowns. Those are great numbers. They are. I mean, he's never going to be an NFL starting quarterback. I don't even see him ever being a competent second string quarterback. So I fail to get excited over 9 for 12 as the third quarterback in a preseason game.
I meant just to clarify, because I didn't even think about that, but Travis Lewis, the linebacker, as far as the bringing in Chris White, that should put him and Whitehead on notice that, keep playing terribly, you're not going to be on this team.
Yeah, and if they are going to get rid of Lewis and not just cut him, they traded him. Linebacker's the perfect spot to do it because it's just a car wash at the position right now. We don't know what's going to stick here. So yeah, bring in White. If he does make it just as a special teams guy, then good. We need special teams players. If for some reason he gets lights a fire under Whitehead or Palmer and makes them anything over average, great. There's no negatives here. We traded away a 4th string quarterback and maybe got a guy that can contribute on special teams. So there's no negatives to take away from this trade. It's just a bottom of the barrel trade with potential upside, I guess.
Yeah, that works for me. That makes a lot of sense. It's nothing to write home about, and I'm surely not going to waste any more of our time on it.
Well, something that is there to write home about. Watch this. We're going to now open up the Bonita Tequila Hotline. We're going to get into our interview of the week with Sean Jensen, who covers the NFC North extensively. We've got all kinds of questions for Sean, and we know you guys are ready for it. So let's go ahead and turn to the Bonita Tequila Hotline right now.
This is Michael Johnson.
This is David Nelson. This is Rob McClain.
This is Antonio Ray.
This is Antonio Brown.
Hi, this is Kyle Rudolph.
On the Pro Football Central Radio Network.
We're here.
So we now have Sean Jensen on the program with us. Sean, we want to thank you so much for coming on.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
So, Sean, your expertise here is the NFC North. We happen to have the Detroit Lions in your division. The biggest thing we want to get to with you is we have a pretty narrow scope on this show. It's just Lions, but with you we have a chance to really broaden it a little bit and get into this division as a whole. And it's a fun question. It gets asked. If you're going to power rank the teams in this NFC North, how do they stack up?
Well, I think you have to start with quarterback play. I think that's the way you look at the division, and I don't think there's any question that Aaron Rodgers is the best quarterback in the division right now until somebody else proves him otherwise. And, frankly, at their best, I'm not sure that Rodgers, Cutler, or even Ponder can stack up, just because I really do think Aaron Rodgers is one of the top 2 or 3 quarterbacks in the NFL. He's just a special player. He's carried that team through good times and bad. And I think that this year he's got a little bit more, he's got a better supporting cast. I think he's going to have a better running game. And I think that he's going to have a special year this year. So I think you got to start with him there. Probably, the next team, I think it's really a toss-up, frankly, with the other 3 teams. It's really just going to be based on injuries. But I kind of like, the sort of makeup right now of what the Vikings and the Bears have going. I think there's a lot of positives for those teams. And you know what I like most? The running backs. I think Matt Forte is going to have a huge year this year. I really sensed it at times last year. They've really improved the offensive line. Mark Trestman is going to do much more to focus on running the football. And then I don't think you can discount what Adrian Peterson did last year and the fact that I think he'll be even more powerful this year. He's got his offensive line back intact. And you just got to figure, I've not been impressed with Christian Ponder so far this preseason, but you got to figure that with the weapons that they've added, that the Vikings receivers are going to make Ponder just a little bit better. So, and then, of course, you've got the Detroit Lions, but that's not to discount that the Lions couldn't be right there in the mix to make the playoffs. They just have a lot more questions to me than the other three teams in the division.
Well, that's interesting what you said there with the offense actually being what kind of sets Minnesota and Chicago above Detroit. So you think it's maybe not deficiencies, but the lesser backfield that's holding Detroit from being ranked higher in this division or being a better team in this division?
Well, what I think Detroit needs, I think what Matthew Stafford needs is a more potent running game. And I think what they did instead was basically just go get another receiver for the backfield. And I'm not sure that that's what Matthew Stafford really needs. I think Matthew Stafford is the kind of quarterback that would probably be best suited to play with a very good traditional running back. And instead, they're kowtowing to sort of his tendency to just drop back and just fling the ball all over the place. And I'm not sure that that's really the best use of Matthew Stafford's skills. I mean, he's not a real mobile quarterback. He's got a great arm, can really throw it to any spot, but I haven't seen enough instances where Matthew Stafford has really done what Aaron Rodgers does so regularly, which is really shine in those key third down situations and late in games and make those clutch throws when you have to make those plays. You know, that's what I don't see from Stafford. And so they go out and get Reggie Bush, who's a terrific player, but he's not a traditional running back. You know, he's basically just going to be a glorified receiver out of the backfield.
Well, hey, Sean, this is Brandon here, the other co-host. It's obvious you must operate at a genius level. I just made a couple of those points earlier, how reliant the Lions need to be on that running game, because two of their scores were set up on play-action passes. And Nick and I differ on how Reggie Bush should be used. But one thing I want to get into, I think maybe the NFC North as a division, as a whole, I think it's overrated. I think that it's not on par with the NFC West, and it's possibly behind the NFC South now. Where do you see the NFC North in the bigger picture? Is it still as high as it was last year?
I do think so, because typically you're going to evaluate divisions based on quarterbacks, based on a bunch of different factors. But I think that what you have in the NFC North are some exceptions to the rule. And what I mean by that is, okay, typically you're going to say quarterback, Green Bay Packers, Aaron Rodgers, special quarterback, they're going to be potentially an elite team. Well, the problem is that with the other teams in the division, you've got some super, super special situations. You know, you look at the Detroit Lions, and they have Calvin Johnson, who is arguably, you know, the best, one of the top three weapons in the NFL. I mean, am I wrong about that? I mean, Calvin Johnson is a special football player. So you start with that. That gives the Lions something special. Then you go to the Minnesota Vikings. They've got the reigning MVP of the league who ran for over 2,500 yards. And then in Chicago, I feel very strongly that Matt Forte is going to have a very big year for the Chicago Bears. I think they're improved offensive line. I think Cutler's going to be better this year. And I think Matt Forte is going to be one of the huge beneficiaries of Mark Trestman's new style. And so I think that he's going to have a big year. And so I think that's what keeps the NFC North right in there. I think they're going to beat up on each other, and it's going to look like one of those years that the NFC East is so famous for. You know what I'm talking about, guys, where all those teams kind of beat up on each other, and all of a sudden three of those teams with kind of modest records sneak into the playoffs, and any one of them, if they get hot, could be the one that goes to the Super Bowl. And I think that's kind of what you see with the NFC North in terms of potential.
So you're saying the Detroit Lions can go to the Super Bowl?
I honestly, I wouldn't rule it out just because Calvin Johnson, if Matthew Stafford can stay healthy, if they can figure out a way to utilize Bush, if they can get some things going on defense. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't personally think so, but it's not like the Detroit Lions or the Jacksonville Jaguars. We know the Jaguars are going to stink this year. There's no circumstance in which I can see the Jacksonville Jaguars doing anything better than winning 5 or 6 games. I mean, that is absolute best case scenario for the Jaguars. I don't think you can say that with the Lions. I think the Lions could be a 5-win team. I think they could be an 11-win team. That's how wide the variance is for that team, just based on a lot of key things. I don't think they have as large a margin for error as some of the other teams that we've discussed. Because they have more holes. There's some holes on defense that I don't feel they adequately address. They've still got some holes on offense that I don't think they've adequately addressed. But again, when you're looking at Calvin Johnson and what he brings to the table and the potential of what Reggie Bush can do and the potential of Matthew Stafford, I think they're a team that could, if they get hot, make some noise.
Well, Sean, with that, we really want to thank you for coming on the program and spending a little bit of time with us.
Well, I really enjoyed it, guys, and best of luck with you guys. I really enjoy the stuff you guys put out, and welcome a chance to come back on with you guys sometime.
All right. Thanks a lot, man.
Cigar fans, check out fifthdowncigar.com and enter the coupon code PFC to get 10% off your order. Lots of nice high-end cigars. That's fifthdowncigar.com. Enter the code PFC for 10% off your order.
So that was Sean Jensen. Brandon, it is fun sometimes to be able to look just beyond the scope of the Lions and look at the division, sometimes the conference as a whole, and just kind of put everything in perspective a little bit. He had some really great things to say.
Oh, yeah, agreed. And I couldn't help it. Once he said something, or he even mentioned Lions in Super Bowl, I got giddier than, I'm just talking about Ezekiel Ansah. That's a shot.
Didn't you set him up with the Super Bowl, or did he organically bring that up? I swear you said something.
No, he was answering the question about the division and how he said it's like the NFC East and any team could get hot and make a run for the Super Bowl. It's like, what?
Oh man! And then he said they could go 5-11.
Yeah, exactly. But you can't let that shit slide when somebody says something like that.
No, absolutely not. We have to harp on it as long as we can whenever someone mentions Lions and Super Bowl. Oh man! All right, so off of that high, back to the preseason. We go from Super Bowl back to talking about Week 4 of the preseason. Sorry, guys, that's the transition we have to make. The Lions still have another preseason game to go. It's against the Buffalo Bills. It is a Week 4 game, which is generally there's not much to watch here. But Brandon, they do play the game, and is there something that you're looking for that you need to see out of this contest?
Well, kids, this is called a callback, and I'm going to call back to what Sean Jensen was just saying. To me, it's all about the quarterbacks. I know that Stafford isn't going to play much, but I want to see him lead one of those drives where it's just he's on fire, you're not stopping this team. That's what I need to see.
Yeah. No, he's probably only going to have one, maybe two chances to do it, but that's all he should need at this point. He's had plenty of them in the preseason. Yeah, I mean, I want to see that. I guess I don't need to see it. First string offense, okay. Where I'm more interested for this game, at least, is I think the whole linebacking crew that we've gone over at length on this show has been, we talked about it's a car wash, so they're all going to play. I think they're all going to play at length. See if anyone stands out, anyone does anything to really grab a hold of a starting spot at least with Levy and Tulloch. I don't know if anyone will. The odds are they probably won't, but I'm looking to see if someone does do that. I can hope. I guess it's Week 4 against the Buffalo Bills. I'm not expecting it, but if someone does grab a hold of that position, then so be it. That's what I'm going to watch the whole game, and that's what I'm hoping to actually see, because watching four quarters of a Week 4 game isn't always the most exciting thing to do.
I was going to say I'm going to buy some stock in Monster or whatever energy drink you prefer, because you're going to need it.
I know. Maybe that'll be my turn to try out that Bonita tequila, huh?
Exactly.
All right.
That brings us to one of my favorite parts of the show, which is the confidence meter. I had a buddy reach out to me talking about, so I'm guessing this week you guys are going to be so doom and gloom. I'm going to be honest, I'm not feeling that much better than I was last week. How are you feeling?
I can't. I'm not going to. I mean, I think in the preseason you need to be more upset about a big loss than you need to be excited about a big win, because a preseason, 40-9, and it was against New England, but I don't know. I didn't get it. I want to go high for the fans here and go, 8-9. I'm really excited going into Buffalo, but I'm not. I'm sorry. I am an optimist, but here I got to be realistic, and there's just confidence shouldn't be too high yet. It's not, and there's nothing they can do against Buffalo that's going to make me take that confidence up to an 8 or a 9. It's just, for now, guys, it's a 4, it's a 5. I'm not that confident in this team, especially with what I'm seeing in the back seven of the defense. A quick strike out of the offense would be great, and it would be awesome to see. But the confidence is going to be low until we see, hopefully, a great showing in Week 1 against the Vikings. But for now, 4 or a 5.
I'm going to go ahead and bump it all the way up to a 6. I mean,
Okay.
just call me a sunny optimist. My tequila glass is always half full. But I did like the fact that at least the defense was showing some, as stupid as it sounds, some form tackling, some fundamental football. And I loved what I saw of that defensive line. I mean, the thought of Nick Fairley and Ndamukong Suh wreaking absolute havoc in the inside, while, Jason Jones, that poor guy barely got mentioned on the show, and he had 2 tackles, probably because he was just cleaning up scraps. But, hey, that's exactly what they brought him on board to do. And, just for good measure, we'll go ahead and mention Ezekiel Ansah on the other side, hopefully wreaking some havoc. I think that gave me – it inspired some confidence. But, again, the offense, I'm still not sold on Reggie Bush being an interior runner. And I'm going to it's just – and I'm also worried about what that's going to happen to that offensive line when they play a tough Vikings front line. So I'll sit around at a 6. And with that, we're getting close to the end, where I want to make sure that I tell you guys to go find us on Facebook at Lions Central Radio, and please like the page. And there's also find our Twitter handles, because we're going to have a contest where you have to follow all 3 of us, though. You have to follow the show, which is Lions Central PFC. You have to follow me, Brandon Alisaglu, and you also have to follow Nick Kostora, the co-host here. And you can find both of our Twitter handles, because we have names and they're not always easy to spell, on the Lions Central page, and make it even easier for you.
Yeah, if you stuck with us through, what is this? What have we done, like 8 or 9 episodes now? You stuck through this whole episode, this whole hour-long spiel. You've earned the right to hear us talk about this, and we really want you guys to go in on this Twitter thing. And the winner's getting a cool shirt out of it. It's a really sweet deal. So just, even if you don't like the show, like us on Twitter so you can get the awesome shirt out of the deal. We're pretty excited about this, and Brandon, we got one more week of preseason talk. We were so excited to start talking preseason, but now it's time to say, okay, we're done with the preseason. We're ready to start talking, real football here in a week.
Oh man, Ezekiel Ansah.
Shot. All right, with that, Lions Central Radio, another week in the books. Thank you so much for listening, folks.
This has been a presentation of the Pro Football Central Network. For news, blogs, highlights, and more, log on to ProFootballCentral.com.